Zane Matthews stood before the gleaming 50-story skyscraper, his eyes tracing the elegant curves and sharp angles he had designed. At 32, Zane was a rising star at Whitfield and Morgan Architects, with an uncanny ability to blend functionality with breathtaking aesthetics. Yet, as the morning sun reflected off the glass facade, his moment of pride was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Matthews. Coffee run." "Black, 2 sugars for me," barked Trevor Whitfield Jr., son of the firm's founder and Zane's supervisor despite having 3 years less experience. Zane's jaw tightened. 7 years at the firm, a master's degree from Cornell, and award-winning designs to his name. Yet he was still treated like an intern. The sideways glances when he spoke in meetings, the random security checks in the building, the backhanded compliments about being surprisingly articulate. Zane felt the weight of these daily indignities pressing down on his shoulders, threatening to crush the passion that had once burned so brightly within him. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as Mr. Whitfield Sr. cleared his throat. "Today, I'm pleased to announce our new senior design director." Zane straightened in his chair, heart pounding. This was it. The promotion he'd been working toward for years. "Congratulations to Bradley Cooper." The room erupted in applause while Zane sat frozen, a hollow feeling spreading through his chest. Bradley. Hired just 18 months ago. Grinned and shook hands with the partners. "Thank you for this opportunity," Bradley said with practiced humility. "I promise to uphold the Whitfield and Morgan tradition of excellence." Later, in the break room, Zane overheard Trevor and Bradley laughing. "Dad was concerned about Matthews," Trevor snickered, unaware of Zane around the corner. "Said clients might not feel comfortable with someone like him representing the firm at that level." "Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence," Bradley replied. "Though between us, his Westside Community Center design was better than mine." "Maybe, but this isn't just about designs. It's about who fits our culture." Zane's coffee cup crumpled in his grip, hot liquid spilling over his trembling fingers. He didn't flinch at the burn. It was nothing compared to the searing pain of confirmation. His suspicions weren't paranoia. They were reality. Zane fled the office early, unable to maintain his professional mask any longer. Rain pounded the pavement as he ducked into a small coffee shop he'd never noticed before. The place was empty except for an older black man seated in the corner, reading a newspaper. "Rough day?" the man asked without looking up. Zane ordered an espresso and slumped into a nearby chair. "You could say that." "Passed over again?" The stranger folded his paper, revealing keen eyes that seemed to see right through Zane. "How did you?" "Name's Leon Washington," he said, extending a weathered hand. "I've seen that look before. Wore it myself about 30 years ago." Something about Leon's calm confidence made Zane open up. He found himself pouring out the whole story. The promotion, the overheard conversation, years of subtle discrimination. Leon nodded thoughtfully. "Let me guess. They call your ideas too urban or experimental, while a white colleague presents the same concept and they're innovative and bold." "Exactly," Zane exclaimed. "How do you know all this?" Leon slid a business card across the table. "Former civil rights attorney," it read. "Because nothing changes unless we make it change," Leon said firmly. "And you, Zane Matthews, have more power than you realize. Question is, are you ready to use it?" Following Leon's advice, Zane began documenting everything. He arrived early, stayed late, and paid attention to patterns he'd previously dismissed as coincidence. 3 weeks later, he met Leon at the same coffee shop, laptop in hand. "Look at this," Zane said, voice tight with controlled anger. "Every minority hire in the last 5 years. Never promoted beyond junior designer. All eventually quit." Leon studied the spreadsheet. "Good work. What else?" "The Jackson Heights project," Zane continued, pulling up renderings. "It's a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood. The firm drastically cut corners on materials and safety features. Things they'd never do in wealthier areas. Can you prove intent? Zane nodded grimly. Yesterday, I accessed the server archives. Found emails between Whitfield Sr. and contractors. He opened a document. Quote, "These residents won't know the difference between quality fixtures and basic ones. Slash the budget, increase our margin." Leon whistled low. That's discriminatory business practices. There's more, Zane said, lowering his voice. They've been assigning minority architects to these cut-rate projects, then using their underperforming designs as justification for denying promotions. Meanwhile, white architects get the prestigious downtown projects with proper budgets. Systematic discrimination, Leon concluded. And clever enough to seem legitimate on paper. And look at this, Zane pulled up financial records. Funds earmarked for diversity initiatives. Over $2 million diverted to executive bonuses. Leon's expression hardened. They're not just discriminating. They're profiting from the appearance of inclusion while actively undermining it. What do I do now? Zane asked. Leon leaned forward. Now, we build our case. Mr. Whitfield, do you have a moment? Zane knocked on the open door, his heart hammering against his ribs. The firm's founder looked up, irritation flashing across his face. Make it quick, Matthews. I've got the Riverside investors coming in 20 minutes. Zane closed the door and stood tall. I'd like to discuss the promotion decision and some concerning patterns I've noticed regarding minority employees. Whitfield's expression shifted from annoyance to cold calculation. Sit down. For 15 tense minutes, Zane presented his observations about the lack of diversity in leadership and the troubling project allocation patterns. He carefully avoided mentioning the emails or financial records, following Leon's strategic advice. So you think we're... what? Racist? Whitfield's laugh was brittle. Matthews, you've been a valuable team member, but this is disappointing. We make decisions based on merit alone. Then why has no person of color ever advanced beyond junior designer? Perhaps you should consider that correlation isn't causation, Whitfield replied, standing. I expected better from you. This sounds dangerously close to defamation. Trevor appeared at the doorway. Everything okay, Dad? Fine. Matthews here is having some career concerns. The senior Whitfield's smile didn't reach his eyes. In fact, I think we should schedule a performance review next week. Re-evaluate his position. The threat hung in the air as Zane left, hands shaking with both fear and resolve. They're threatening to fire me, Zane told Leon, pacing across his apartment. Expected, Leon replied calmly. But now we need allies. You can't do this alone. The next day, Zane approached Maya Rodriguez, an HR assistant who'd always been friendly. After swearing her to secrecy, he showed her the promotion patterns. I've suspected something wasn't right, Maya whispered. The exit interviews. Minorities always cite lack of growth opportunities. Management makes me change the records. Maya agreed to help, discreetly copying personnel files after hours. Meanwhile, Leon reached out to Darius Taylor, a former Whitfield and Morgan employee now working at a competing firm. Man, I'm not surprised, Darius said when they met. They had me designing strip malls while less experienced white designers got museums and corporate headquarters. 4 more former employees joined their cause, each with similar stories. The breakthrough came from Elijah, the night janitor who'd worked at the firm for 15 years. I empty their trash, clean their offices. They don't even see me, he said, handing over photos he'd taken of documents left on desks. Been collecting these for years, just waiting for someone brave enough to do something. The final piece, Bradley Cooper himself contacted Zane. I heard what's happening, Bradley said nervously. I can't sleep knowing how I got this position. Count me in. The quarterly board meeting buzzed with tension as Zane entered, flanked by Leon, Maya, and 6 former employees. Mr. Whitfield's face darkened. This is a private meeting. Security. Whitfield barked. Actually, Leon stepped forward. As legal counsel for these individuals, I suggest you hear us out before making that call. Trevor jumped up. You can't just barge in here. Dad, call the police. Before you do, Zane projected documents onto the screen. The board should see these financial records showing misappropriation of diversity funds. Gasps filled the room as Zane methodically presented their evidence. The emails about cutting corners in minority neighborhoods, the promotion statistics, the doctored performance reviews. This is absurd. Whitfield shouted, but his face had gone pale. Bradley Cooper stood up from his seat at the table. It's all true. I was promoted over Zane despite his superior work, explicitly because of racial concerns about client comfort. 2 board members exchanged alarmed glances. We've already filed complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Leon stated calmly. And contacted the clients whose buildings had safety corners cut. The press receives everything tomorrow morning. Whitfield lunged toward Zane. You ungrateful. That's enough. A woman board member slammed her hand down. Mr. Whitfield, Mr. Matthews. Neither of you leave this room until we get to the bottom of this. 6 months later, Zane stood at the podium, looking out at the transformed Whitfield and Morgan. Now simply Morgan Architects after the board had voted to remove Whitfield's name following the investigation. As the newly appointed Chief Design Officer, Zane announced to the assembled staff, I'm proud to introduce our Community Accountability Initiative. His gaze found Leon, now heading the firm's new ethics committee. Nearby sat Maya, promoted to HR director, and Bradley, who'd chosen to stay and work toward real change. True excellence comes from diversity of thought and experience, Zane continued. And justice prevails when good people refuse to be silent. Today marks not an ending, but a beginning. The room erupted in applause as Zane unveiled the design for the new Equality Center. His first project as CDO. Built on the very site where Whitfield Sr. had once cut corners.